Hello, everyone. Melissa Santana here, co-host of the Miss Texas Show. Super excited because we have our guest Alana Vera with us today. And before we get started and dive right in, I want to formally welcome all of you to the Miss Texas Show, where we showcase life in Texas and beyond, and highlight amazing survivors of traumatic events, family violence, sex trafficking, sexual abuse, and community leaders to share community resources. Under our segment Military Time, we invite military and veterans who would like to share with us their experiences during and after the military service. We run the segment in partnership with the National Veterans Chamber of Commerce. We would like to invite those who have overcome traumatic events and would like to share and are not ready to help others. Under our Beauty for Ashes segment, we invite fellow pageant sisters, winners, nominees, artists, so that's musicians, actors, models, you name it, dancers, as well as survivors who are now ambassadors for the cause to share with our audience their lives and the impact they have made. Our show runs twice a month. If you would like to become a guest on our show, email us at msusatexas@gmail.com. The Ms is MSUSATXAS@gmail.com. Or you can message us on our Facebook, which is also at MSUSATEXAS. So Ms. USA Texas. With that being said, we have our wonderful guest, and I want to make sure that I formally introduce her so everybody gets a chance to know her a little bit better before we ask her questions and get to know her even more. So over the course of just a few years, Alana has overcome domestic violence, sexual trauma, and debilitating autoimmune symptoms in the Lupus family. Today, she experiences almost zero symptoms, yes, of autoimmune disease. Just a little Raisin's phenomenon once in a great while, so nothing major, but thankfully. And is thriving in her commitment to self-love and health. Alana learned through her own experience the power of where we focus our mind and how it can totally shift our internal body chemistry. We can either be in a state of fight or flight, or we can be in a state of rest, digest, and rejuvenation. Yes, yes, to all of that. The more we choose positive thoughts, the more we can help our bodies to regenerate and make room for us to rediscover our livelihood. Fruits, vegetables, positive affirmations, energy work, and the internal family systems approach have all been part of Alana's secret sauce to thriving despite her challenges. She committed to experimentation, research, and a sincere belief that health and wellness is our natural state to achieve her own results. Now that Alana's on the other side of these challenges, she is available to help guide you and keep you accountable to sticking to the healthy lifestyle habits that can help completely turn your life around for the better. If you want to transform your life with more self-love, Alana can save you that time and struggle of doing it all on your own. You can book a 15-minute free self-love reset call to discuss the coaching program that will include the support you need for the transformation you are looking for. And so with that, because I definitely am intrigued, I want to give you an opportunity to tell us more about that, like more about you, who you are, how you got here, anything you got to share.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's so lovely to hear. Sometimes we need a reminder of all the things that we've accomplished, because, as we go towards our new goals, it's easy to get hard on ourselves. It's like, yeah, I did all that. So thank you for, introducing and sharing everything that I've overcome. And I'm so happy to be able to help other women and men that have overcome or are looking to overcome domestic violence, especially after they've left. That's kind of my focus right now. I definitely do help people get healthier with foods and whatnot as well. My story, just to share a little bit about that. So I was in a domestic violence relationship. It didn't turn really violent until about 2 and then really 3 years into is when it was so bad that I ended up leaving. It was quite an experience. I went through a lot of trauma before I met my abuser. I was dealing with I had some issues with mold in my apartment in Hollywood, and I was getting a lot of retaliation from my landlord. They were shutting off my hot water. They were shutting off like basic utilities, like illegal stuff. And other tenants in my building were also experiencing a lot of crazy retaliation. One of the tenants had her car was egged. I had shootings going on my street. So I'm sorry, this is a trigger warning. I should have said it ahead of time. There's so many things going on. And it was kind of like that perfect storm for meeting someone and being in a really vulnerable place, where you meet someone and maybe you just don't go through all the normal verification process, so to speak, of is this person who they say they are they trustworthy and all of that. But essentially I met, someone who also had a lot of trauma. And so I think that was kind of like, that was like the trauma bond, so to speak, as we call it. But we, I went through this entire experience of I ended up moving in with this guy after like 3 months of meeting him. And it was because my apartment situation was kind of crazy. So, and I also was dealing with lupus symptoms were starting to show up, and it got so bad to the point where at one point I was not able to like open my hands properly in the morning, where I would wake up and my hands were like in this fist, and I would slowly, over the course of a few hours, maybe or so, they would start to kind of work a little bit more functionally. And so during that time, I was like, man, I've been through the medical system, and I was on like acid reflux medication for like 7 years, and I was not supposed to, like, now we know if you're on these medications for more than a couple of weeks, you can have kidney failure. So like, I was just like really traumatized by that too. Just, okay, who do I trust? Like, what do I do? How do I fix my body? And I really believed that, we have the power to, with the right nutrients and with, resetting ourselves and being in a healthy state, that's our right, and that's our birthright. And so I was determined to get to the bottom of it. And so I was willing to try some different things that, I didn't want to take conventional medications and things like that. And so I ended up going on the raw vegan diet, and I actually literally ate fruit for like 9 months. And it was a really crazy experience. I know a lot of people are probably like, oh my God, like, did you have like an eating disorder? Like, no, like my body was not accepting other foods. Like I would eat fruit. And that was like the one thing that within like a couple of weeks of just being on fruit, like my hands started to normalize and things started to regenerate. And I was basically going through like a detox phase. And during that time, I was being supported by my family financially, but I was really afraid to tell them what I was doing, because I didn't want them to be like, what are you doing? This is really dangerous. You shouldn't be just eating fruit or whatever, because, of course they care. So I was kind of like hiding this, and I was in this, like, it was like a double life for me. And, but my ex was very supportive actually of me being on this fruitarian diet and doing the raw vegan and doing all these things. So like he understood that. And and that's the thing about abuse, is a lot of times, like, we're in these relationships where there is something that's really good. But then of course, unfortunately, there's these other things, these traumas or whatever that are unresolved. And then over time that came out, and that was definitely stressful, and that impacted my health, I think, as well. But that's, when people ask things like, well, why did you stay? Or what? Well, because there was a lot going on, right? It's not simple. So, anyways, I went through this experience. I was really thankful and grateful to be able to really reverse a lot of these symptoms that I was experiencing. But I really felt like, because I hadn't told anyone about what I was doing. And, even being vegan for a lot of people is stressful to like tell their families about. So, so I felt vulnerable. And so I felt like I was kind of relying on him a lot. And over time, I broke out of that. I ended up finding work. I ended up working for Tesla actually for a little while. But that's actually kind of when things started to like kind of get bad, where he was starting to, threaten me and saying, get the F out, like, as we were living together, I was relying on him, but like no one knew about it. So he was kind of using those like vulnerabilities. And that's when all this kind of like this emotional manipulation and stuff started to happen. And we were going to therapy actually. And, it's just like, no matter how much therapy we did, it's like, it was not getting better. Like, it was confusing, because like sometimes things would get better, but then they would get worse. And so I was so confused. And even like my therapist, like I was seeing a therapist for myself, and like she was giving me mixed signals and mixed messages. And so ultimately, like, I had to trust myself, because a lot of times we're so used to, we're kind of like taught to always kind of seek answers from the outside, and we're not really taught to look within and to trust our own intuition. But it was really critical that I did trust my intuition. And I knew that even though my therapist was like, there was an experience that I had with my ex where he kind of went through this like road rage thing, and I was feeling really unsafe and uncomfortable because he was like driving up really fast against to cars, like really getting very close, and just he was mad at me, and he was kind of like taking it out on me and making me feel scared. And my therapist did not recognize that as abuse. And that's just unacceptable. So, there's just a lot of things where I was not getting the support, but I had to trust my intuition. So, but at the same time, my therapist did say you need a safe plan. So it was very confusing. So I was doing that. I had a safe plan. And while I was with him, I was slowly moving things into storage. I had a storage unit, thankfully. And so just over time, just little things I didn't notice, and then kind of mentally keeping track of like, okay, where's this thing? Where's that thing? If I need to grab it, because I also didn't want to feel like I was just going to leave and like literally leave everything that I had behind that was in his place. I didn't want to feel like I was stranded with nothing. So yeah, I went through this whole process of getting these things together. I started reaching out to friends again, because I had kind of like self-isolated, because everything I went through with my apartment, and just, there were some things that were going on with my family too. At the same time, I didn't know if I could really trust. I just didn't know who I could trust. And he was like the one person that I trusted. And it was really a shock when it was like, oh, wow, I really can't trust him, because now he's getting violent emotionally. And then over time, it turned into sexual coercion, and it turned into the final straw for me, unfortunately, wasn't even that. It was him hitting me. And that was the moment that I was like, oh my God, like he really, he hit me. And then he was like, okay, like, and it wasn't like a huge hit or anything. It was like, he hit my hand, but like, he took the keys out of my ignition. He took my phone, like we were driving, like it was very scary. And then he's like threatening me, like, oh my God, like that was so scary. So yeah, it was definitely a wake up call. And I was like, I need to leave. Like, I really like the safe plan that I've been making. Like I was still going to therapy and doing these things with him, but it was like, I need to use it. I need to actually get out. So I ended up basically, I just slept in my car, and it was kind of a crazy experience. Like that's a whole other story. But I slept in my car. I grabbed all of my stuff and threw it into my car, like while he was gone the next day. And yeah, it was unfortunate. I did have to leave my cat there, but I know she's being taken care of. She's an outdoor cat, and she's an outdoor cat now. She wasn't before I ended up moving in with him, but she wanted to go. But she kind of became like this community cat with like everyone in the neighborhood. So I know she's fine, but it was one of those things like it kind of lingered for me. Still love her. So I'm like, I don't know. I might want to go back and get her at some point, but I'm just glad to be safe. And ended up moving back in with my family. And that was, an experience in and of itself, because there were childhood traumas and just tension and things that we had to resolve, just things that, communication and stuff that wasn't happening over the past couple of years while I was with this person. And, that journey of healing has been quite a lot. And there was a lot of things that came up, but I was really grateful to have the different tools that I had in my tool belt, so to speak, my self-love tool belt. I had, of course, things like meditation and yoga and things like that. Those are really great. But the one thing that helped me the most was the internal family systems method. And it's kind of interesting, because I found that method when I was with my ex, and I learned about it. I had researched something on YouTube, like, I don't remember exactly what the search term was, but it was all about like these different extreme things about him that I was seeing. Like, okay, like on the one hand, he seemed conflicted. And so I was trying to figure him out. And I found this method called the internal family systems method. And I started learning about like how as humans, we have a lot of different parts of ourselves. And especially, when we've gone through trauma, some of these parts can get really blown out. So he definitely, with his sort of like narcissistic types of behavior. And of course, I'm not a therapist, so I'm not diagnosing him or anything with that. I don't know. This is just from what I see and what I've learned about narcissism. It just looks like there's a lot of narcissistic things going on. But he had this real extreme, like, Mr. Nice, and then like Mr. like super mean. So that kind of gave me enough clarity also to see that it wasn't my fault, and that what I was experiencing, like I wasn't crazy. And then on top of that, I was able to start to work with my own inner parts and start to recognize, if I had like a self-hating part that was probably also a result of what I was experiencing from the outside, but also probably, something from childhood or whatever. But I was able to just not necessarily analyze where those things were coming from, but just to like sit with those parts of me and show them compassion and know that every single part of me has a positive intent for my own survival, my own well-being, even if there is inner conflict. Because I know a lot of us, we're conflicted. We feel like, oh, I still love my abuser, but I want to leave, or I still, I feel guilty about setting a boundary or whatever. Like there can be all this different inner conflict. And it really, really helped me to realize that every single part of me has that positive intent, and I can work with and get to know these different protective layers. So for example, if I have an inner critic, I could really get curious about like, what is it trying to protect me from? What is it afraid will happen if it stops being so hard on me? So all of those things, again, like when you're in an environment like that, it makes sense that you might have an inner critic that's like, well, I'm being hard on you because that's what I feel like I need to do, because that's, I'm protecting you from this other vulnerable thing underneath that, maybe a vulnerable emotion that wasn't allowed to, especially again, maybe during childhood, maybe that part of us was, maybe certain feelings weren't allowed. Maybe it wasn't okay for us to be angry, especially as women. A lot of times we go through that. So I just had to learn how to create enough inner peace within myself to know that everything that he said was nonsense about me, calling me abusive and blah, 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 and making that decision to leave. And then once I got out, that's actually really when like the healing process begins, because now that's when we have all this time and space. Maybe not always. A lot of times when we're getting out, we're still a little bit in survival mode, maybe trying to find work or trying to find a place to live. But like once you get settled, it's like, oh, yeah, there's like this stuff in there that I gotta like, face and release. And it doesn't have to be actually too overwhelming. And that's what's beautiful about this method. So that's actually what I use in my coaching program. I use the internal family systems method to help other women get aware of the different parts of themselves and make peace with them, and to really build that self-love and to start to build healthier habits that are more of what habits that you would create as someone who is healthy and loving yourself, and doing the things you want to do. Doing, for me, it's me. I lost my touch with music. I was pursuing music when I was in Los Angeles, and when I got into this relationship, I also, because of the health issues, but also all the stress I was dealing with, I just completely I wasn't pursuing it at all. So now I get to just enjoy it and have more of like a healthy relationship with it. And it's probably something I'll start to pursue a little bit more on the side and bring more of that into, because that's a part of me too. But I really believe there's so much healing power in just being able to be creative and to tap into those things that we've maybe lost touch with, our inner child, the joyous and creative parts of us that, they want to do these amazing things. And, once we are able to release some of that tension with the inner critic and that conflict, some of those things have more of a safe place to actually start to flourish. So yeah, that's been my journey. I've used a combination, like I said, internal family systems has been the key for me after my healing journey, but also making sure that I'm dedicating some time to do things that I really love to do, things that really lift my spirits and make me feel good. Even just visualizations of things that are maybe my future, and being maybe with a future husband or something like that, like things that are just that put my mind and my body into that healthy space. So I know that was a lot. I feel like I've just been talking. I know this is an interview about me, but I just want to see if you have any questions to ask me.
No, absolutely. And I appreciate every single part of what you said. Just because, yes, there were a lot of gems that were shared there. And no, we wanted all of that to be able to get more about you. I'm glad we took the deep dive. But I did hear a lot of great things that you touched on. And yes, I do want to go back to a few and then expand upon some. So I actually found it interesting that I agree that I think that the perfect storm for an abusive situation is the vulnerability. So like whatever that is. So if we're have low self-esteem and we maybe have a low confidence level, it's a very good platform for an abuser to come in and say, cool, I'm gonna take advantage of that, make you feel even crappier about yourself. And then you'll you'll worship me. And so then that'll be great. So I think that's definitely a good one. But you mentioned specifically that illness, which I think is interesting. I haven't always heard that. And so I think, and definitely kudos to you for being in this, healthier place, even with that. But like you said, I think it was interesting that you mentioned having to manage that, and then how that led you to then have like, you know, the vulnerability that you had later on, and all that. So I'm curious about what that looked like. And then also, you know, I heard you mention about how you took on that diet and all of that, and that helped you to overcome. Was that the only thing that helped, by the way? So I'm curious, like, what did it look like as far as the management goes, overcoming it, and what all helped you to get in a healthier space with that?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Such a good question. So, I actually feel like, it was interesting when I met my ex, he was vegan and I was not. And I just kind of like I don't know, out of laziness because he was making food or whatever, I became vegan. And that was like the first, I guess, experience that I had where food changed my life because I was dealing with hormonal acne on my face and I still have like a teeny bit of scarring, but you really can't see it anymore. But I had all this hormonal acne and it was after I had gotten off of birth control. And it was like a year before, like before I met him, I was like I was trying to do natural things too, because like Accutane had all these different side effects. That was what was recommended to me. And I was like, I'm not going to do that because I had previously had depression and things like that. And I was like, oh, heck no, that's not worth it. So I tried using like different oils, like tea tree oil and things like that are like antimicrobial. It really didn't work for me. And before I met my ex, I was doing this like high protein diet. And when I met him, I was like, he was really fit. And I was like, whoa, like, and he doesn't eat meat or anything like that. And so I became vegan. And within like 2 weeks of doing the vegan diet, again, just kind of like not expecting anything out of it, just doing it just kind of out of laziness and just as an experiment, like, oh, let's just see. I think like a week went by and I realized, oh, I haven't eaten meat. Like, let me see what happens when I go another week. And within those 2 weeks, my hormonal acne had gone away. And I was like, oh my gosh, I need to keep doing this. So it was kind of interesting because I hadn't had symptoms necessarily of the lupus and all of that come up yet, but I had blood work that was showing that I had something in the lupus family. Like I had been seeing a rheumatologist since I was like 13. And my rheumatologist was like, yeah, your C3C and your C4C levels are low. And it looks, and I had positive ANA, and she was like, it looks like you have something in the lupus family. So I'm probably going to want to like check back in 3 months. And you know, that was like, she was going to diagnose me in like 3 months. I actually never really actually got a diagnosis because I decided to walk away because she was right away wanting to put me on medication, and I kind of freaked out. And I was like, no, not just freaked out, but I was just like, I don't think this is the path for me, you know? So that was my own personal decision. And yeah, so I went through that experience with I saw this positive result with going vegan. So after I moved out of my place, that was a stressful situation in and of itself because of all the retaliation and all the kinds of crazy stuff I was dealing with my landlord. It was just nuts. So that was just a stressful situation. And so once I moved back or moved in with him, I think that's kind of like, you know, sometimes when we stop after we're really stressed and we just dumped a lot of like adrenaline and cortisol and all these like unhealthy chemicals into our body, like then it's like the symptoms of things can show up where it's like, whoa, what just happened? So I think that I personally think there are a lot of factors into like why I got sick. I do think that the mold issue in my apartment probably played a role. Definitely the stress, absolutely 1,000% the stress, no doubt. And just like maybe previous traumas too from my childhood. So I think all those things, again, that perfect storm, I think that all had an influence. And I don't know that it was all just a diet thing. That definitely had a lot to do with it. And that's why I think, you know, that's why I had so much improvement when I dropped out, like, for example, starting with meat and dairy. And then eventually I did the fruitarian thing. But I also do believe that some of the function of my digestive system and all that was probably impacted by me constantly being in fight or flight, which is not healthy. And when you're in a fight or flight state, your body is not in a rest and digest state. So it's actually, that's why emotional eating and like eating when you're stressed is really not good for you, because you're not really properly digesting it. So I just think the history of everything I had experienced, you know, that was showing up over time. So it wasn't right away that once I moved in with him that those things showed up. It was kind of slowly over time. And then when it got really bad where my hands, I couldn't go out in the sun either. That was the other thing too. Like I would go out in the sun I would get wiped out in like 5 seconds of just being outside, and I would be in pain for like a week. And I was just like sitting, I couldn't do anything. So I was really, really at a very like low rock bottom. And then just feeling all of the trauma and just like how I was experiencing as well, like just other things like with, family and friends, and how I was experiencing all of those things of just not being really in touch with them or having the communication, like all of that really played a role. So I do not believe it was just a diet thing, but I do think I'm so grateful for it, because now I actually do eat some cooked food sometimes, and I feel like it gives me a little bit of balance. But when I first started, I couldn't touch cooked foods when all this was going on without having some adverse reaction in my body, where like my hands would freak out, and there was just all kinds of weird stuff going on. So yeah, and that's why I think like I'm not dogmatic about like the way I eat. I'm not sitting out there going, oh, you need to go vegan or blah blah blah. Like I really believe in, you have to figure out what's right for you, and it can change over time. And so for me, definitely the fruitarian thing, and doing that for 9 months, and really cleansing and getting hydrated, and I think it really probably helped to like regenerate my nerves. Like I really think everything that was going on with my hands was like my nervous system, and what's attached to our nervous system, like our adrenal glands, and like that's all stress related. So everything's connected. I mean, that's at the end of the day, everything is connected. So I really, I've just been very mindful about, checking in with my body, my mind, and my spirit as I've been going through this, healing process, and restoring my body, and in many ways actually regenerating things to a better place than they were before. Like my skin is like, and it's like amazing how like my skin just looks so good now compared to like before I ever like dropped those things out of my diet. So yeah, and I'm also a believer, everything that I experienced with the diet, with my ex as well, like I had a big spiritual awakening too. And so, I used to be kind of more on like the atheist agnostic side of things, and that definitely changed after I went through this experience. And I'm more in touch with like energy and the energy side of things, and healing with energy work. That's been a really big part of my journey too. So it hasn't been just one thing, but one thing kind of like started the domino effect into the next and into the next. And it hasn't necessarily all been like, it's not necessarily a straight line either. It's like, oh, I tried this thing, and then maybe I had to go back down. Maybe now this other thing came up, and now I feel a little overwhelmed. And now maybe I'm feeling like want to eat some meat or something like that. Like there were a handful of times where I had like some fish or something like in the past couple of years, where it's like, okay, for some reason my body felt like I needed that. And so I've just been a big fan of really tuning into my body and not being too dogmatic about it, keeping an open mind, trying to be a little bit like objective, but also keeping in mind what my experience has been. And just keeping track of like how is my body feeling, and what is going on today in this moment. So I hope that answers your question. I know that was a long answer, but yeah.
Oh, no. I'm gonna say, first of all, it absolutely does. And then I love everything about it, because I think that, and that's exactly what I wanted you to touch on, is that I agree that everything's connected. And I just think too, that with everything that we're talking about, I mean, we're starting heavy. So yes, like you mentioned, I appreciate your trigger warning that you gave. On our show, I know you all know by now that, or if you haven't, welcome, because we do talk about heavier topics like this, but at the same time, it doesn't have to be the end all be all. So I love that, right. We're definitely talking about abuse, and unfortunately it does happen. And it's not like any of us pick to be in an abusive situation. I'm sure if you looked at your life and out of all the choices, I don't think you would have said, yeah, put me in that one. I really want to be in the negative one. Exactly. I didn't think that it's necessarily how we wanted that to go. But I think that, like you said, it is incredible. I mean, your journey is definitely an incredible one. And I think that it's just amazing to hear that not only are you on the other side in a healthier place because you made that decision to leave, but it's also the fact that you have like a healthier lifestyle, you have a healthier diet, you're putting healthier things into your body, healthier things into your mind. It only is, like you said, outwardly reflected as well. So I think that is amazing. And I think the other thing that I want to make sure I highlight before I also start to move it towards, more recent things as well, and like all the things that you're doing, is that I think it was major, like what you said, like having when you left, you know what I mean? When you made that decision to leave. So I am curious about like what that day was like, if you don't mind, you know what I mean, going back to that. But it's just like how, like you said, I mean, I know leaving the cat behind was not an easy part of it either, but I think that's what people need to realize, is that sometimes that's the thing. It can't be this clean exit. You know what I mean? Like, I
Yeah.
mean, you did all those
Yeah.
other things to help, because you mentioned this thing called safety plan, which if everybody doesn't know, that's where you
Yeah.
make steps before you
Yeah.
leave a dangerous situation. And in your case, I'm sure you would have wanted preferably to take the cat with you, but it just might not have been in the plans. So I'm wondering, what did it look like, and how did you develop the courage to finally say, okay, you know what, today is a day I'm going to leave, and this is how I'm going to do it?
Yeah. Whew, okay. So yeah, it was, I felt like I had to. I didn't feel like I had a choice, because the night before I left, I felt so scared for my life. Like, I really was like, so, okay, let's get into trigger warning. We'll get into the story about what happened. So, I was out and about with my ex, and we were at this restaurant that it was one of my favorite restaurants, actually. And he was just having like one of those days where it's kind of like nothing was cheering him up. I was really trying everything to, like, make him feel better. And it's like nothing that I was doing was like enough, it just wasn't it. So, and I could kind of feel, I thought like he might kind of blow up, just because I could see where it was going. I could see like nothing was really working. So we got into my car to leave this restaurant, and I was driving, and he was like yelling at me, and he was like shouting at me, and he was like clapping his hands in my face. Like, he was just having one of those, like, it's like narcissistic rage that was going on. And I pulled over, and I was like, I can't keep driving if you're going to shout at me like this. This is dangerous. And then I think I said something like, I need you to like take an Uber, because like I just didn't feel comfortable with him in the car with me. I was like, you need to take an Uber home. And then he got really pissed. Like, I hope that's okay word for YouTube. He got really angry. So he got really mad, and he took my phone from me. He got out of the car, and he took my phone, and he hit my hand because I tried to grab my phone back from him. And he was like, gosh, I'm like, my brain, it's like one of those things when you go back to like a traumatic moment, you're like, wait, what actually happened? Yeah, he threatened me. He threatened to throw all of my stuff out of the place. He's like, when you get home, he's like, if you have me take an Uber home, like, you're going to come back and all your stuff is going to be out of the place. And I was just in shock. Cause like, first of all, the fact that he hit me, like that was the first time he'd ever hit me. And I just knew, and because I had also, like, I was really grateful, like, that I had called the domestic violence hotline before that, like a month prior. They were letting me know, like, that they were seeing a pattern of increasing abuse. That was the thing that helped me go, oh yeah, I guess it has increased. And then that happened. I was like, okay, well, if he's willing to hit me, like, and threaten me and all this stuff, like all these things that I was feeling so shocked by. I was like, what is this? Like, who is this person? Like, this is not the person that I started dating. And this isn't the person that I was like, this doesn't make any sense. But you have to realize when you see that is who they are. They're showing you who they really are. But yeah, I was really scared, and I didn't know, like, I had him in my car, and I was like, okay, like, now what? So I called the police. They freaking hung up on me. Like, the police, like, I called them. Okay, so this is what happened. I called and I didn't say anything because I was scared to say, like, I was calling the police while he's next to me. I'm like, what is he going to do if he knows I'm calling the police? But then he could see I was calling the police, and then I was like, hello. And then they were like, well, do you want me to come? Do you want someone to come? And I was like, I was kind of like frozen. Like, I didn't know what to say. I was like if they come, like, what is he going to do? Like, I just didn't know. And I just thought, like, if I call the police, I was like, okay, well, they should have like my GPS signal, right? Like, right. Because like, it's a cell phone, like they should know where I'm at. And I didn't say anything, like I didn't answer. And they're like, hello. And then they're like, well, you're going to listen to him or you're going to listen to us? Like, that's literally what the dispatch said to me. And I was like, what the heck? So, and then she hung up on me, and I was like, okay, I guess I'm on my own now. So I was like, I really didn't know what to do. So I was really angry. I was very, very angry about that happening, about my ex, like, shouting at me. So I was angry. And of course, he's taking it as like, he's seeing that as I'm the abusive person because I'm feeling angry about what happened. So he starts like, I'm driving. I just started driving around because I'm like, I don't know where to go. I don't know, like, if I go home, like what. So I was kind of just like buying time, I guess. Like, so I was like driving around. I was pissed. I was angry. And yeah, he started crying, and I was like, okay, like it's confusing when that happens, and like he starts crying. But at the same time, I was just like, I was feeling like in my body, I'm like, I'm done. I can't do this. And scared and like what's gonna happen next. So then I went back home with him. I was so nice to, I was like, okay, if I would just watch a movie with him, and then just go to bed, like, I'll figure this out tomorrow. So just watch the movie with him so I wouldn't have to like talk to him. So watching a movie, and then like the next day he was like, I'm gonna go visit a friend. And it was a friend that lived far away. And I was like, oh my gosh, thank you, because I knew he was gonna be gone for a long time. And I was like, all right, this is my opportunity to go. So I had an SUV. I packed up all the stuff that wasn't in my storage. I packed it up all into my SUV, and I was like, okay. And my cat was, of course, like she was outside. I was like packing my stuff away, and she was like being all cute. And I was like, okay, this is a perfect time for her to be all cute as I'm like trying to rush and like get my stuff out. So I felt like I kind of like didn't really get a chance to like even say goodbye to my cat, but I knew she was okay. And I just felt like, I had to take care of myself, because I was like, I don't know where I'm going to sleep. Like I knew I couldn't bring her with me, because I was like, I don't even know, like I can't just have her in my car. She's not going to be able to like, I don't have a litter box in my car. And I was dealing with like chemical sensitivity too. So I was like, it wasn't even like, oh yeah, I could just go to a hotel. Like, it wasn't like that. Like I had problems sleeping at Airbnbs that were like eco-friendly, but they had used detergent that had scents in it. And like, I couldn't sleep. So I was like, oh, I guess I'm sleeping in my car. So that was the struggle. And I was like, even like, gosh, where do I go? Where do I go for like shelter? Even like if people are walking around and they've got like, their detergents and this and that. And that's why it was so hard for me, because I was with my ex and he knew about all my chemical sensitivities. And so I felt like in some ways I felt safe with him leading up to that point, because like he knew about all these things health wise, and like I was accommodated. And so it was very, very hard. So once I did end up leaving though, so I slept in my car. I actually slept in the parking lot of my storage unit, and I got in trouble for that. They were like, you're not supposed to be here after hours. Like I almost lost my storage unit because of it, but I explained what happened, and they were like, okay, like as long as it doesn't happen again. But then I was like, all right, I got to figure out where I'm staying. So then I ended up staying with a friend. So she let me sleep on her couch. I had to kind of like just deal with, some of the sensitivities and the chemical things that I was dealing with, just being in a new place. Or, okay, yeah, she used Febreze on her couch before. My body can kind of feel that, but all right, like I have to do what I have to do. So, but yeah, it was hard. And then like moving back with my family, like they weren't aware of all of the things. They weren't aware of like the chemical sensitivity and all, like I hadn't told them any of this stuff. So like I got back home, and I actually slept in my car in the driveway when I got back home, because my dad had like, he put some sort of like air freshener in the vents, and they had taken that out, I think like a week prior to me coming back home. But it takes a long time for that stuff to actually like clear out of the air. It takes at least like 6 months probably. But I ended up having like a little safe space that we ended up creating, and that wasn't too affected by it. So yeah, it's been a journey. But I also know now, like the chemical sensitivity, I think a lot of that was connected to PTSD and trauma. And I've been able to like actually improve that over time. I still am a little sensitive to some things, but I work on it, on a regular basis. I work on it when I can, because it's like on the one hand, there's emotional things that, sometimes I'll take time to work with my inner child parts and work through that kind of stuff. And I find the more that I do that is the less I have like sensitivity, and the less that so it's not like I don't have like a even really a regular routine of this is exactly what I do every single day. I kind of just do what is needed for that day. Like I wake up, it's like, okay, I have some child parts here. Or sometimes it's like, hey, I'm ready to go, create some stuff, and I'm ready to like post some things on Instagram and share, self-love and inspire people. And maybe I want to do some, it's balanced. But yeah, I had to, when I first came home, I definitely had to be like, put a little bit more conscious effort into like, all right, like I'm going to focus on doing things that have nothing to do. Like, I'm not focused on trauma. I'm not focused on anything like triggering. I didn't even really use certain words like chemical sensitivity or PTSD. Like I would try to minimize like the amount that I would say those things. Cause it's almost like when you talk about the elephant. If you say there's an elephant in the room, you're going to think about the elephant. So I would purposefully not really talk about a lot of those things, but it did get to a point where it's like, all right, I needed a little bit of therapy, need a little bit of like, all right, need some extra help. But ultimately, like, because I had all these amazing tools, I was able to really do a lot of recovery on my own. And I think probably because I'm so used to having to have relied on myself so much, it's like, I have done a lot on my own, but it's also really nice. And it's when you actually do reach out and you get help, it's like, oh yeah, I can just like sit back and like, let someone do some Reiki energy healing on me. Like, I don't have to do it today. It's someone else gets to. So that's like some of the things that it takes time to like actually allow yourself to like receive love and help after you've had to like rely so much on yourself. But I also know I'm stronger for it. And so I definitely I don't regret anything, but I also wouldn't wish on this on anyone. But I definitely am like, I know I'm like, I want to swear. I don't know if I can do it on YouTube. I'm a bad bee for everything that I've been through. And I have these skills now that I can share with other women that have also, I can help them prioritize themselves and start to like learn some of these different tools, because these are things like a lot of us don't, even really energy work, like what's that, or, what's this parts work? What is this? It's kind of abstract. And like, so there's all these different tools, like a lot of people just aren't even aware of. And there are things that really, really helped me. So, I want to empower more people, women, men, like anyone who could use this. And I think so many of us, as a society, like our consciousness is always evolving. And I think that there's a lot of narcissism in society. I hate to say it. But I just look at that as this unhealed, wounded child parts of us. And, I have compassion for my abuser. I know he went through a lot, but I also know I have compassion for myself. And I know that I don't deserve to have gone through what I went through. It was not right for him to take out his unhealed garbage on me. So, it's a balance of like, on the one hand, I'm like, yeah, I'm forgiving him in a way, like I'm letting go. I know there's probably more forgiveness work to do, but it's like, I'm not seeking anything from him anymore. I don't want him in my life. I know that I'm deserving of filling myself up with love, and I wish him well. I know that there are plenty of tools out there for him to do his own inner work. If he really wants to change, all he has to do is ask. So, if I can do it, so can he. So he's on his own and I'm taking care of me. So that was kind of like my resolve. I know a lot of people can feel guilty for setting boundaries or feeling like, it's somehow their job to take care of their abuser. And that's a lot of times why people end up staying, and they really feel guilty. But really, like, we have to really start to see ourselves as being empowered individuals, including our abuser. We have to look at them as like, they can, if they want to change, they can. There are resources they can find if they want it bad enough that they could do it. If I can go through all of this and overcome all of this, anyone can overcome anything, but of course you need support, but you have to ask the questions. You have to look for the support and reach out to, therapists, coaches, self-help stuff, like whatever you can do, the answers are out there. So yeah, that's kind of my soapbox, I guess. But I feel like I went on a little bit of a tangent, so I'm gonna pass it.
No, once again, they're welcome. But again, no, I think thank you is what I want to start off with, because I having been in an abusive situation as well, I know that took a lot, a lot of courage, not only in the situation, but even to go back to it, like you said. I mean, I also appreciate that before you even went into it, the deep breath that you took, right? I felt that on the other side of the screen. I was like, yep, because it takes a lot. And so like, I think, like you said, it's all of that part of that interconnectedness. And even though you've been on this other side, that's how powerful our minds are. And I think too, that it definitely resonated for me, but I think too, if there's anybody out there that resonated with you as well, please know that that's what we mean, that, we're not alone. And so like, we're definitely going to perfect transition into, what services you offer. But I think too, it just was so much more powerful knowing that they're coming from someone who clearly knows the situation themselves, like yourself. And I think it's just incredible to see that, yeah, you were in something that was like that and was that unhealthy at the time, but look at you, like, on this other side, killing it, doing all these great things, being the bad bee that you are, and all of that. and just killing it. So I think it's awesome. It's such a great example to see. And I love to see it. And I definitely think that it's such a, wonderful part of it, and culmination that you're able to be here now. And so with that, speaking of that, internal family systems, I know you said that was your claim to fame. You love it. Wondering, and it's kind of like our final question to try to tie it all together. One, I'm curious who, put you onto that, you know what I mean? So who's the plug? Who do we get to credit for letting you know about that? And then how do you incorporate it into what you do? And then yes, please share with us what it is that you do and what you offer to others.
Yeah. So like I was saying before, I found the internal family systems on YouTube, and I found an interview with the creator of it. He's a therapist, actually. His name is Richard Schwartz. I don't remember who the person was that interviewed him, but that was how I got turned on to it. And I just went into a rabbit hole when I discovered it. So, and then I found the book Self Therapy by Jay Early. I loved that book. That was really great. And then I just, did a bunch of research and started figuring out like how to do it myself. And then I worked with some therapists that have also done it. But it is actually a method that isn't just limited to therapists. Like it is also something that's taught to coaches. And so I did a coaching certification as well for internal family systems. So I had that little, certificate too. But I definitely had a lot of experience actually doing it on myself. And I've also worked with other women, helping them unburden some of these child parts of them that might still be stuck there, or even just developing self-compassion for like your inner critic. Because a lot of us, like, we have this inner conflict of like, we have the inner critic, but we also hate the inner critic, and working with that and understanding that it's okay to feel like both of those perspectives are valid. But we might need to ask that part of us that hates the inner critic to step aside, so we can actually start to get to know the inner critic and what's its positive intent, and how do we actually like release those some of those burdens, and just get to know. It's just like, the more that you get to know your inner child, just like if you actually had a child, if they're suffering with something, you'd probably want to get a little bit curious. Like, it doesn't actually help to start yelling at them. And maybe, as humans, maybe sometimes that happens or whatever, you get frustrated or impatient, but it's really all about cultivating a bit more of that self-compassion, curiosity, just getting curious about what those positive intentions are. Creativity is another great way to tap into that, like self energy, as it's called in internal family systems. So I just use all of those different things to cultivate more of that self energy, so that we can start to like get curious about, what's actually in the subconscious without like analyzing it. We're actually directly asking those parts of you that have the information, and I don't even need to know anything about it. Like, if you want to do that, like if you want me to just help guide you with the questions, you can do all that inner work on your own. You don't even have to share with me the content that comes up. Like, it can be an internal dialogue. That's the really beautiful thing about it. So many beautiful things about it. So I just feel like that method has been it's so gentle. I love it so much. And it's so compassionate. It's really what we all need as a society, this sort of non-judgmental approach to things. And when we can give that to ourselves, it makes it much easier to be more compassionate and courageous, because sometimes we do have to set boundaries with other people, and sometimes that takes a little bit of courage. But it allows us to really see that, we are valuable, and develop that self-love. So it helped me with that. But, as you can see, I'm wearing some cool affirmations. I've got "I am bold" on this shirt. I've got some awesome behind me. Like, I've got these notebooks. This one's "I am strong." So I have a line of affirmation artwork. Affirmations have been another really big thing for me in my healing journey, to rewire my brain and allow myself to see myself in a different light. A lot of times we can feel really ashamed of who we are. And the more that we say things like "I am strong" and "I am beautiful" and "I'm courageous," is the more that we start to believe it. Because if we heard it from someone else, and we started to believe it simply because we heard it from them, well, who's to say we can't tell ourselves a different story and start to believe our own story that we want to tell ourselves? So that's what I've done. And so, I have these amazing shirts and affirmations. So if you want to check those out, I do have an Instagram that has a link to it. It's Affirmations by Alana. I do share a lot about all this all the time on my main Instagram, which is Ascending with Alana. And then those links will be in the description below for you guys. But those are, this was kind of the beginning, and this was my creative expression. But I also offer coaching packages as well. So I have a program right now called Shine Shamelessly, and it's about breaking through, like the one major thing that's limiting you from feeling Maybe it is some kind of shame or something like that, or if it's the inner critic that's really bothering you, to really get to know it and get to know all these different influences around self-love for you. So if it's maybe you have an inner critic, maybe there's also some positive influences as well. Like maybe you have a spiritual part of you, maybe you have some other different aspects of yourself, and kind of learning how do they all work together? What are the different beliefs that each of these parts hold? What are some of the stories? What are some of all these different things? There's basically like 8 different aspects that we map out together in the first session. And then we go through and we work through, we do, it's a breakthrough program. So it's not like a longer program, but if you do need a longer program, I'm always here. If you want to do something customized, you can do a longer one. Probably going to have some other more fun programs coming your way too. But this is what I have right now is the Shine Shamelessly. And yeah, and then we break through with doing some of that parts work together. I help guide you with how to do it. So that's the Shine Shamelessly program right now. I've got a wait list. I've got a couple of people that I'm already working with, so I'm filled up currently. But if you're watching this video, again, there will be a link below for signing up for the wait list. You'll get $50 off of the program by signing up, and it's totally free to sign up for the wait list. So you have really nothing to lose. If you decide, you don't want to sign up by the time there's the spot available, of course, you can pass on that. But you definitely are getting a lot out of the program if you do join. So I definitely recommend it. So yeah, that's the main program that I have right now. Also, I want to say for anyone that is watching this video, if you send me a direct message on Instagram, or if you contact me some other way through, maybe you contact me through my email or something like that, let me know that you saw this video. And I will, if you purchase the Shine Shamelessly program, I'll also give you 2 affirmation art notebooks like this. So you get to pick one of your choice. I have like 23 different designs or something. So there's a lot of designs to choose from. And that can also help you, write out more and journal out more of the things that you need to get out as you're on this process of doing this inner work and working with the different parts of you. So yeah. That if you want to, like I said, sign up, there is a link in my Instagram bio. Oh wait, but we're on YouTube, so it's going to be in the description below. So we're good. We're covered.
Definitely with that, right? But I love everything about that, and I'm so glad because I was definitely going to ask about your shirt if you didn't mention it. So I'm glad you beat me to the punch, because I love it. Definitely love everything about that, and I agree. I mean, I think clearly we're not the only ones that believe that it's such a good program because the waitlist speaks for itself. So everyone, clearly you need to jump on this because it is a great opportunity. And I can't agree enough about how great positive affirmations are, to say them and to believe them, because we know that is the biggest part, is that it might seem awkward at first to say, but that just means that that's part of the healing journey, is to then not feel that way anymore, release that, and to really accept that you are valuable and you are worthy of love, and you definitely deserve to cultivate that as much as you can. So I think it's amazing, Alana, that you shared that with us. And since we have come to the end, even though we went really fast, so that's how we're having a good time, is that I really appreciate that you shared, how to find you and all of that jazz. And Alana is spelled Alana for those who are watching. Yes. So definitely, so yes. I heard. And so with that, I do want you to go ahead and repeat it again, those ways to find you, all of that, and where you can be located.
Yeah, so you can always go to my website as well, ascendingwithalana.com. I've got my Instagram. I'm pretty active over there, so you can send me a direct message there. Gosh, there's so many ways to get in contact with me. I'm on Facebook. Yeah, I'm everywhere. I'm on Clubhouse. So yeah, so definitely I would say I'll put all the links. We'll put the links in the description, and then the Shine Shamelessly waitlist. We'll put that in the description too, so that you guys can hop on that, and when there is an opening, we can work together.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it. So I love it. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. Thank you for letting us know everything about, like I said, diving deeper into your journey, and for sharing how to find you, because I definitely think more people should, and should definitely take advantage of this wonderful opportunity. So thank you again for being with us, and thank all of you for tuning in today. Thank you all.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me. It's been such a pleasure. Yes, it's been great.
Thank you.